Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a subscriber from Alaska who wants to share two of her terrifying but very thought-provoking encounters. Before we get into this, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions, written by Tom Lyons, narrated by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? All right, everybody. Tonight I have a subscriber with us. And I'm actually really excited about this one because she is from Alaska, and I've never had a subscriber come on from Alaska and share. Brittany, how are you tonight?
Doing pretty good.
I appreciate.
How about you?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come on and share your encounter with us. Pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand the floor over to you and you can share your encounter. I may interrupt you if I have a question, but other than that, I'm going to just leave it up to you to tell your encounter to me.
All right. Okay, let's see. I'll just start from that morning. Of course, I live in Alaska, so this was April. And it was actually Easter. We had just got dumped on, had a ton of snow. And I'm an early riser. And I usually get up early and I'll take the dogs out and go do things before everybody wakes up. So it was about 4:30 in the morning. And I got up, and it's still dark then too. And nobody's up, and where we live, it's a neighborhood, but we have acreage lots and things like that. And I was sitting in the truck, and I was listening to something, and something had caught my eye off to the left, and I looked off to the left, and the only way I could describe it is, when we were kids, we'd have those little sparklers, the little ones that would have these orange-ish, goldish light hue type glows. It was like that, and it kind of did this moving motion past the truck over to the tree line. And I thought, at the time, I was so engulfed and enticed to it too, that I didn't realize it until after the fact. But as I was watching it go, I also started to notice that. Have you ever felt like you have a heavy head? Like a headache, like a fogginess or whatever.
Yeah.
When you're in the airplane, or something like that. That was happening, and I watched it go over to the tree line, and then it just disappeared. And then I thought, what the hell? And I looked, and I didn't. It was so random and so quick that it just was like nothing. And I looked back at my phone and was watching whatever I was watching. And then something just, I don't even know what to say, but maybe it was just me looking up again. I looked up, and in between the tree line was that moving type, when you see the heat come off of your car, people will call it like a mirage, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like
if it's really hot.
Yeah, like a shimmer kind of, yep.
Yeah, that is literally what I was seeing. And I would see a little bit of that goldish orb type spark thing. And all of a sudden it moved, and it started to make a form of like a big boulder. And as it was making this form into a big boulder, it was like a smoky gray. And then it moved up and stood up and instantly had the form of what you would naturally call like the Sasquatch Bigfoot form. It moved over, and we had a huge, like 6-foot mound of heel of snow right there, like along the tree line. And it moved over, and it maybe moved over in 1 foot, like one step kind of thing. And I it was not solid. I mean, that's it. I'm being honest. It wasn't solid.
Okay.
It moved over in 1 step, and then it became where it literally comes into this form of solid. And at this point, I'm scared. I like where I'm starting to, like, my heart's pounding 100 miles, and I'm sitting there thinking, what the fuck is going on? Because I do have neighbors and stuff, and if there was anybody else outside, they would have seen what I was seeing. It's not like it was just this little, wind. It was right there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, now this is where it gets weird. In my, I guess, I mean, I've heard people talk about it, because ever since this happened, I literally was scouring the internet, looking up things, and it was just something that is in my, like, it's in your head, but I'm not saying it.
Right.
It was said, not all of us are bad. And then I sat there for a second, and I was like trying to think. I mean, because you're trying to process what the hell's going on, and all of this happened in a short amount of time. I mean, I'm talking a short. And then I was sitting there thinking, well, shit, not all of us are bad either. And that, that was it. I could see his nipples, and it was a male.
Right.
I could see his nipples. When you have salt and pepper, like wisdom hair gray or whatever, it was like that, but more of the white toned.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard people like say, oh, their skin tone was gray, or what. It was not gray. It actually had a rich, like blackish brown skin tone. And the closest thing that I can think of what it is close to is my dog's nose. They're brown, and it's like a dark brown, and that was it. And it all happened so quick and so short that it was like, that was it. And then it went. What was so nuts is I literally, that was it, the end of it. And I don't think it hit me right until like maybe 5 minutes after. What the hell? I didn't even get out of my truck at all. I was sitting there trying to process what the hell just happened.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Like when you said it left, like I'm picturing, like, when you're talking about the sparkler like thing, almost kind of like an orb or something. But when it left, did it just disappear?
It just disintegrated.
Okay.
It completely disintegrated.
Okay.
And I know that just does not, that like defies against all of our I think that's the part that bothers me the most.
Well, really, nothing's etched in stone. I mean, we have no real clue or solid evidence of, it's just, we don't know. You know what I mean? Like because I know you have another encounter you're going to share, but I have a friend who, I shared his encounter. He's actually a cryptozoologist and writer, but he saw orbs in the woods, bright orbs, and then knew in his head that he had seen and that there was a Dogman. There was a woman in Ohio that
Uh-huh.
had a very similar thing happen, where she had moved into her home, kind of almost saw like these vapor things like you were describing, almost like a portal opening, kind of, and
Yes.
but it communicated with her as well mentally. She ended up playing some Native American flute and drum music on her laptop outside and saying, "I don't want any problems with." She got sick. She was actually sick, and she believes that like the infrasound was making her sick.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's not a strange, even though yeah, it's not the atypical. We saw it running through the woods thing. I mean, we
Yeah.
have
No.
no.
Yeah. That's just it. It's not your typical thing at all. And but then, so fast forward to 2 days later after this, my dogs, it was really late. It was like midnight, and they were whining to go outside like abnormally, like excited. And so I took them outside, and it was like a fog, like a dense fog that was kind of down low. It was probably more like 11, I should say. And I noticed that it had like the sulfuric smell, and I know that because I grew up in Salt Lake, and in Salt Lake, we get, when the storm's coming in, we would always get that sulfuric smell that comes off the Great Salt Lake.
Right.
And I remember thinking at that time too, like, what is this? Like, that's so crazy. I've never smelt it. But what was so odd is that it actually gave me a feeling of comfort, where it was home, back home. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then the next thing, it was, this is crazy. So then so much time had gone by. It was weird. And over to the right, I have a fence. We have a fence that goes around us and then comes up to our house, because we have a portion of our property blocked off where we park our boat and snow machines. And I saw right there oh, this sounds so dumb. It almost looks like a lightsaber that you would see, right, that the kids play with.
Mm-hmm.
That was this literally like orb, like orangish hue, and it bounced and went 1, 2, 3 towards my house, and then 1, 2, 3 towards me as I was sitting on the porch. And I am so engulfed and enticed to this, like you would not believe. And I go to turn around because I'm watching it, and something, when you go to get stopped, say you're in a dense, like a crowded area, right? Like a auditorium or a movie theater, and you go to turn around and someone's behind you and you're like, oh, excuse me, because you would bump into them.
Right.
I went to go do that, and something stopped me, where I went to, I hit something, like something was behind me, and I almost tripped in a sense, like, what the hell? And then I turned around again, and I was able to turn around. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then immediately I'm like, where are my dogs? I have Labradoodles. They're very hyper dogs. They're not, they're lovable family dogs, but for my dogs to be laying out in the snow, just laying there on the ground, is not normal at all. Right. They were out on the like where the lawn is, but obviously it's snow, just laying there, not doing anything. Laying in the snow. I can't even get them to do that myself. I've had them for 7 years. They're just laying there. I call them up to come to the porch, and I go inside, and my husband's right there, and he's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, why? And he goes, it looked like you tripped on the porch. Or he said, you looked like you tripped over air or something on the porch. I'm like, you saw that? And he said, yeah. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then it started hitting me I couldn't go to sleep the rest of the night at all. I'm sitting there, and this is, I'm laying in bed, and now this is where it gets weird and creepy. And I don't know like what this is or where it comes from. I mean, I have no idea. I get this picture, I guess you'd say, like in your mind, of this big hand, like a Sasquatch type hand or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I can see the palm and everything in my in my mind, and your mind's eye, whatever you want to call it. And I can see the lines in its hand. I can see the little bit of the whitish type gray fur coming off it. And that's it. That was it. And this was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I started processing it. I've lived up here for almost 20 years now. I have never, ever, in all the times that we've lived here, storms, snowstorms, everything, we have never, ever had that type of sulfuric smell come in. And the way that the fog came in and came down so quickly too, as I just walked outside, that's bizarre in itself. I know that comes down, don't get me wrong. And when you have especially if it's like a fluctuation in the temperatures and things like that, but when you put it all together, that was just bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And the sulfuric smell. And then, are you kidding me? I remember I ended up calling my mother the next day, because I was like, if anybody was outside, I could see this, whatever you want to call it, like orb-like thing. I mean, I'm talking clear as day. What in the hell? Stop. I don't know. I don't even know if stop me is the right word, because I went to go turn around and I couldn't. Something was right behind me. That's all there is to it. Obviously, I turned back, and then I went to turn around again really quick, because I did get spooked.
Right.
And then there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Nothing there.
I mean,
so that was my first like little whatever. I mean, little, I don't know if that's the right word, encounter. But I hear all these, I've scoured the internet. I've listened to all these things, and there is something that is not, I don't know what the right, being told, because I definitely don't want my last name out there. I don't want, but I am, that happened. That's it. What I saw is what it is, and that happened.
Yeah. I'm no expert, but I'm just from everything that I've learned and everything that I've talked to, like everything that you just shared to me points clearly. I mean, in my mind, I've heard a lot of people talk about how these Sasquatch have almost like a cloaking
Yes.
ability, or they're interdimensional. There's a Russian scientist, a female Russian scientist, who was not working for the government, the Russian government, but the Russian government ended up taking her research and making her work either way, because they were talking about the cloaking, almost like a predator, but not really. Like they were squatches, because they can go, supposedly the Sasquatch is, you see it and then it goes behind a 2-inch tree and it's gone.
Exactly.
So that's almost
it's
what I'm getting
gone
from you, like I'm getting,
yeah.
You saw this thing, maybe it was crossing in front of you, or, or maybe that was just like, maybe it was a portal, and that was not even a key to open, but maybe like some sort of magnetic or electric charge in the atmosphere when these portals open. Who knows, but it's like you said, I mean, just because it's not your typical encounter doesn't make it any different. You saw something that doesn't make sense, and it was clearly,
not at all.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it, it's clearly a Sasquatch or something along that lines, but
something along that lines that looks like that. I mean, I still have struggled to say that this is what it is.
Right.
And I have also struggled to talk about it too, because I want to talk about it and I want to say something, but there has been a part of me, and the only way I can possibly even describe it was there's almost like there was something sacredness, or I don't even know if that's the right word, something that, no, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Not that there is a part of me, like ego part, like, oh, you don't want to talk about this because woo, there goes that woo thing or whatever, but that's not it. I have really struggled and gone back and forth with this on what yeah, like, do you know, and where it was along the like tree forest line. The crazy part is I mean, we have our big birch and spruce trees, and it's a thicket of it right there, and that's what surrounds our home too.
Right.
Like, you know, like that's all we have basically. And then you've got like a power line too that runs like right over that. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know, but I do know what I saw.
Yeah.
And if there was anybody, you know, like else out there that would have seen that, they would have seen it too. There's no way you could have missed it. It wasn't like it. And the only thing is when it happened, when I was in my truck, the biggest thing is I really felt like all of a sudden my head got really heavy.
Right.
And it felt like almost like a airplane ride, I guess, is the best way that I can describe that.
Almost like you weren't. It's like I'm just kind of like the way you're talking. I mean, I kind of feel like it was almost like you weren't supposed to see it, kind of, you know.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. And all, yeah.
You know, it is spiritual. It is a spiritual thing because our ancestors, you know, like they had I believe, you know, there's no way of fully knowing, but I believe that there were some sort of pact with these creatures, and you know, our ancestors told us more and knew more than we do. We have creature comforts that they didn't have, but they had more knowledge than we had, you know, like that we have.
And that's things. Literally what I've been looking up, to be honest, and like going down that line of knowledge, right? Like looking into them and the native, you know, and the elders, and what do they know, or what have they, you know, what knowledge, or even the stories. And every time I keep going, I keep veering towards those stories, because they always seem to resemble a little bit more of or I resonate more with them of what happened that night, that weekend.
Yeah.
With that.
Well, it's the truth. I mean, you know, that's the truth. It's powerful. It's crazy. Yeah. It is crazy. Now,
well, and then there's my other one, I guess. This one just threw, and this happened. I mean, there was quite a few of us around when the second one happened. And this just happened a few weeks ago. So we have a cabin, and it's pretty remote. And this is where you really keep going back over and over in your head, you know, like, because you're trying to figure out what the heck.
Now, this is different property than your first one, right?
Yep. Okay. Yep. This is a different property. So this is just our first one was at our home, and then this one is up at our cabin.
Okay.
It's about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes away. It's about it'll take like an hour drive, and then it's another hour boat ride up to the cabin.
Okay.
And we were, it was, so the day before we were up fishing, just having fun all day, like all up and down the river. And there, you know, your rivers do your S bends. And there's this one sandbar that's just right above ours. And it was here. I mean, I know what those are and everything. It was incredible. Right above our cabin, there was so much that this person that was with us couldn't believe how big these. She was saying they were wolf prints. They weren't wolf. They were very, very big.
Right.
That were. I mean, she even took pictures, right? Like with her foot and then her hand and everything. And what was crazy is, I mean, our lynx population has started to raise too in the past, 5 to 10 years and stuff. But I myself have never seen a wolf up there. But that's not to say that they're not up there.
Right.
And so we were just messing around. When we left that sandbar, we went down to a gravel bar that's right in front of our cabin, and we were out there fishing, and there was this bird that was whistling that was a different whistle, so much that the person that was with me was like, "Do you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I started whistling back, like mimicking the whistle. I'm like, "I've never heard a bird whistle like that before. That's so weird." So much that we were still fishing, and it would do it, and then we would do it back. That was it. It was just like nothing. Like you think you're just and
right.
What was so funny is the person I was with even made the comment, "Are you having a conversation with him?" Britt? And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so. No big deal." So we left, and by the time we left the gravel bar, it was after midnight. I mean, because it's still sunlight up here. And so we went back up, went to sleep, got up, and a person that was with us up there got up really early in the morning. Not really early. It was about 7 in the morning. And we got up and we went outside, and we were just sitting outside in front of the cabin. It's that classic, beautiful morning, right? Nothing, you hear a little bit of the birds chirping or whatever, and, that's it. And we were sitting there just talking, and then all of a sudden we hear this roar. Now, this roar is not your normal roar.
Right.
It is.
I just want to specify something, because I've talked to you, so I know a little bit about you.
Yep.
And your husband go out on the river and do fishing expeditions. So you've been out in the nature. You're not just Brittany, Alaska mom. I go up to my cabin and go fishing. You've been in the great, the great northern wilderness, and you've heard and seen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted everybody else to know who you really are.
We just had an encounter with the bear. Literally, yeah. I mean, I know what bears are.
Right.
I know what bears do when they're threatened. I know the sounds they make. I know, when they're territorial. I even know what I've seen lynx when they are just, still making their noises, making their, announced or whatever, or being territorial with another one. I've seen two fighting.
Right.
I know what a lone wolf sounds like. I also know what a pack of wolves sound like. In fact, we have a couple of friends of ours that had some animals on their farm that had them taken.
Okay.
So I know. I guess I know exactly. I know what the certain. I even know what moose. We've been out when it's mating season during, for our mooses and hunting season, and been right there in the pitch black dark when moose mating calls, just everything.
Right.
I've never, in the 20 years that I've lived here, have I ever heard anything like this, and when it had happened, it was, you could hear it roaring. And the way that this roar was, it was being dragged out for so long that it roared, and then it even jumped to a higher pitch, but it actually sounded like two vocals together. That's that me and the other person that was with me, that we couldn't get it out of our heads. We were dissecting it because it was like, what in the hell?
Right.
And it did it 7 times. And as it was doing it, it was, I want to say, and now this is where it gets nuts, because if you think of something that is 3/4 of a mile above you, right? And you can see that cabin that's 3/4 of a mile above you, and you know that this is coming from back there, but you're hearing it as loud as you are from where you are. That's crazy. That something is making a roar that powerful. And as it did this, it came closer to us, to a slough that is probably maybe, I mean, honestly, I don't know. It's not that far above us, because it did this roar, and and this is what's even more nuts too, is as it's doing this, and the distance and the movement that it's making, because it came closer to us, and then it walked back behind us. And we have a mountain range that kind of like branches off the Rockies, like, in North America, that kind of comes all the way up. I could probably even send you some snapshots on Google Maps, to be honest, exactly where it's at, to where it was going. So behind our cabin, about a mile back, we had like a pond, and then you go up a little ways, and then that's where the mountain range starts. Whatever this was, it made the distance that it covered was, I mean, you're talking at least a mile. You know what I mean? At least.
Right.
Now I know bears can, you don't even think they're stalking you, and they are, and they can cover some ground. But when a bear is pissed, or a bear is being territorial, it'll like do that type of growl, and then also go, and it'll chomp its bit, like that, like chomp its bite, bite, and it will kind of like move, like sway back and forth or whatever, and it'll growl. This, nothing like that. And the other thing, you think of a wolf, when a wolf howls, how a wolf can howl, but it doesn't have this deep gutter roar,
right,
that you can feel it under your feet.
How long would you say each? I know you said there was 7, but how long would you say? Because you said it was a roar, and then it went into like a high pitch. How long was it approximately?
Okay, so if you go, because as it is roaring, we're looking at each other so much that I even told her, grab the dog and put the dog in the cabin.
Right.
It was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would say anywhere from 8 to 10 seconds. 8, like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, right. 3, 1,000. And though it was nuts, is the first one wasn't as long at all. The first one was just a gut rattling roar, like something simple and short.
Okay.
And
kind
simple
of making
and
its
short.
Presence known.
Yeah. And then, and we didn't say one single word to each other. And it was almost this knowing we were in the presence of something that was not normal at all.
Yeah.
At all. We looked at each other, and then it was like, did you hear that? We're like, yeah, did you hear that? And then it did it again. And then that was when it was closer. And then it got closer. And then where it was from then, we could hear it start to move, it was, you heard it coming closer to us, like coming down the river, and then cutting a hard right, going down the slough, and then going back behind the cabin to, no, it sounds like it's in a short distance, but it's not. You got to figure you're on a river.
Right.
You've got cabins that are all spread out and whatnot. So, I mean, the distance alone was just, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And if I were to drag
fairly quickly as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just, I would say, I'm together. That is the,
right.
And that's the only way that I can describe it.
Which is a
And I
lot of lung
know,
power right there. I mean, it's possible for something to make that. I mean, it's obviously it's possible because you heard it, but for something to do a guttural growl, a guttural roar, and then a high pitch at the
a
same
high
time,
pitch.
or during the same breath
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm
powerful. That's
saying.
a very
Tell,
powerful creature.
tell me, yeah, that's, and
While
I,
moving
I
too.
I'm gonna be honest. I have I have listened. I mean, I know that deers will make funky noises.
Yeah, they make
I
some
got
weird noises.
caribou.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know, and I maybe it's something that I'm trying to convince myself that it's not. But there is still nothing that I've found that even remotely even could even come close to what that was.
Right.
It,
Did it end just as abruptly as it started, or what
Yeah,
happened?
and that was it.
Just
After it hit the seventh one, and it was fun. And I say the seventh one, so you say 5, 6, and 7. We knew that it was walking back behind us. Like it was moving away. So it was like the first, the first few was coming down, and then it was another 2 that was like close range of us.
Yeah.
And then the last 3, it was like going farther away from us.
How were the dogs acting?
Oh, that's the other thing. So the Labradoodle, well, she came and sat. After that first one, and we're sitting there. I mean, because I think it was first thing in the morning. We we let her out, go to pee, and we're just sitting there chit chatting. She came and was sitting on top of my foot. You know when a dog sits?
Yeah.
She was sitting on my foot. And when it first growled, and then the second one, I was like, holding her and like rubbing her. She had her head just looking down at the ground, like in the most bizarre,
dominant
manner.
kind of like not like
Yeah, literally
submissive.
right?
I mean, like kind of like a
Submissive. That is the best way to describe it. Submissive, because when you're petting them or you're holding them or by you, their tails are waggling. Even if they're sitting, their tails are waggling, right? Or you're rubbing their ear and their tail might be wagging a little bit, and they'll nudge up against your leg, or something. No, nothing. Nothing.
That's strange. Now, your friend, when she took those pictures of those prints, can you ask her if she still has them?
Yeah.
Or could you get them to me?
Yeah.
I'd love to check them out.
I will absolutely send them to you.
I mean, and you, like I said, and like you've said, wildlife. I'm assuming you've seen bear print, so.
There's a
definite difference between a bear and a wolf print. So I'd love to check those out. I mean, especially when she's using a comparison of her feet and her hands towards them too.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Absolutely.
That's a terrifying encounter. I mean, that is truly.
And that
terrifying.
was the other thing, too. After this happened, it was like our hearts were racing, too. And you're trying to think of like all these things, and we were like, even we go inside, and we were the only ones that were awake at the time too, so we're going inside. So then we start telling everybody, and that's where it comes into play, where everybody's like, oh yeah, right, whatever,
right.
And you're like, wait a minute, no, this is not, there was nothing normal about this. I suggest people maybe go look up what a bear roar sounds like, right? It is far from that. There is nothing that has been on the internet, nothing at all. Someone even mentioned to me about, I can't remember what he had said, something about, how was it, black-tailed deer, so I don't remember. He's like, oh, that's what it is. And so I looked it up. That was the furthest thing from it.
Yeah.
There was nothing normal about that.
People that have not heard it, they want to put something to it to debunk what you heard, but they didn't hear it, so they don't even know.
Right.
That's the key thing. That's
Yeah.
that is terrifying. I mean, I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
far was that from? How far was that from the sandbar that you saw those prints?
Uh, maybe, maybe 50 yards.
Now,
So,
when it was coming down, because it was the river. Was it close to the river or no?
no.
Okay.
So when it was coming, when it was coming down, I would say, well, yeah, it kind of was. It, so there's two cabins that actually sit up closer to the river
Okay.
than ours. Um, it was maybe directly behind it. I mean, and this is just me making assumptions because I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going off of like maybe where the
Well, you're going
smoke
off
was coming
what
from.
you know. You're hearing the sound and you know your property, so you're just going off
Hmm.
of what you
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so and if you, if it, this is where it is behind those cabins, you're talking maybe 50 more yards to the sandbar, literally. Um, because think of how a river does S-curves
Yeah, yeah.
and things like
That's
that.
why I was
There's
thinking,
a
because when you had mentioned the S-curves, I'm thinking, well, you're telling that. I'm wondering if it, I don't know. That's strange.
it,
It's
yeah,
friggin' terrifying, to be honest with you. It's friggin'
yeah,
terrifying.
yeah.
And I wasn't there, and I'm putting myself, like, imagining myself, just like, I could not imagine how you guys kept your composure. I would have took my dog and
We,
headed for the
we were
freaking cabin.
What was funny, well, yeah, I had told her, go put her back in the cabin right now, and she comes right back out, and it's still, so you think of seven roars, but they're being dragged out so long, and it is such a short amount of time, but it's so crazy because when it's happening, it seems like it's forever,
Right.
and we, it, after it was all said and done, we. We go up we have raised our kids up this river. We snow machine up there in the wintertime. We've spent Christmases up there. Summertime we're up there all the time. All the time. This is and if you think of portions of rivers, like some are more populated than others, and then you hit breakage points, and then you've got like another portion or whatever. Where we're at, we have a chunk kind of cabins or whatever, and then it breaks.
Right.
And then it's, yeah.
There's
And so
nothing for
we're
miles and hundreds of
nothing,
miles.
literally. Yeah, nothing.
Okay.
And never, never have any of us heard anything like that.
That's insane.
Ever.
That's insane. Wow.
I mean, you hear stories and stuff, or people probably.
Well, I've heard some things, like I've heard people talk about Dogman or Sasquatch.
To be honest, I didn't even think of Dogman
I'm thinking Dogman. I'm just
until, yeah, after,
prints.
when you role play everything in your head.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wait, those prints, they were.
And the drawn out long, I mean, a Sasquatch, just from people talking, and I've heard people talk about it, and it's a bellow, a whoop, and they can do a lot. I mean, there's been numerous different examples or how people have described them, but I mean, I've heard people talk about the Dogman and their roar as it's roar guttural, deep, and then high pitched as well, all in the same sense. So I mean, with the prints, that's why I was curious about the prints. So I'm really not sure. It's definitely a terrifying friggin' encounter. And what makes it more terrifying is because you can't see it. You're
That's
using
right.
your mind
Right?
to figure out what the hell this thing is, and your mind can play a lot of nasty tricks on you too. So.
That's exactly it, right? Your mind can play tricks on you,
Yeah.
and then that's the other thing. There's something weird about it because you can't let it go.
Right.
Um,
you get obsessed. That's people either
yeah,
get obsessed with it. They get like you've went and started hunting sounds. You know,
yeah,
people like there was twins, two girls. They had I don't know if they were twins. They were sisters, probably twins, but they were in a cabin, not a cabin, an old abandoned home, in like shitty part of town, close to the woods, just dilapidated home, and they were going in there to do something, and they saw a dogman. One went and closed, just shut down, completely changed. The other became completely enraptured with anything about cryptids, and there's two variations. You either get psyched about that and want to learn as much as you can, or you kind of go into a shell and become very afraid, and and you have that other one where you are just inquisitive and want to know more and more, and it's crazy how that happens. And it's to everybody that I've ever spoken to has had one or the other. I mean, I've met people, I've talked to one guy who he became completely enamored with these things. His wife went into a shell. They ended up getting divorced. She ended up committing suicide. And he believes because of the encounter. And it's friggin' insane that these things are out there, and that, we have no no protection against them, from anything. So
I can totally understand that, and I think, or my biggest thing is I've never had anything like this, nothing like this happen at all. And to me, those are two major things in a short amount of time.
yeah.
And two very random experiences that then I go and I start looking things up and whatever, and you're starting to hear about these things and stuff. My issue or my problem that I had is like, okay, so people really are having these experiences, and obviously, there's got to be some way or some outlet of some sort, because what happened at our home that morning was so beyond just so off the charts abnormal and bizarre that I still, I mean, it took me a while. Like I said, I struggled. Maybe you're not supposed to talk about that. I don't know. But then what happened at the cabin, there was something so different about that there was a terrifying factor.
Dangerous,
I will, yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. There was something that it was like, oh my God, did you hear that? Yeah, did you hear that? And then it was like an immediate, and I mean an immediate, terrifying dread. Get her in the cabin.
Primal fear.
Yes, there was something that was not. There was something that was not right and very out of the fucking norm with this.
I think,
and it's
I think through humanity that when I said earlier to when we were talking, that we've our ancestors had better understanding of these things.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why we're afraid of the dark. There's a reason, and it's primal. It's a fear that's just something embedded in our DNA. Like
yes,
like a butterfly, a monarch butterfly knows to fly to Mexico or whatever. Like there's certain things that are embedded in certain animals' DNAs. we're an animal, and when we hear something that we can't recognize, we immediately get that primal fear. But with your experience, it's it's so primal that you're just closed and holy shit, what is that? It's crazy. It's
Mm-hmm.
wow. I can't. I'm
And
coming up on
I
time.
will say too, the other person that was with me,
Mm-hmm.
so it really is remote. Like there's no cell service up there. I mean, obviously you can listen to your music on your phone and take pictures, but I mean,
Right.
it's not like you can get on the internet. I couldn't get it out of my head, and maybe it was more because we're up there all the time. And I've never heard that before. And I've heard grizzlies. We had a moose, a mama and her baby, that were taken down by a grizzly, like back behind our cabin.
Wow.
I've heard shit before.
Right.
This was so out of the norm, and I couldn't. And we had an issue getting down that took up like a 3-hour trek of our time. And even still, as soon as I got to cell service, it was like, oh shit, I need to start looking. And then through that evening, because we were still going on our trip, so you're hitting different points of different treks. It was me scouring the internet looking for it.
Yeah.
As soon as I found one that was semi, I'm like, listen to this. What do you think of this? And it still wasn't like it. And it still did not even resemble like the depth of it,
Right.
let alone the long drawn out high pitched part either, because it was all combined together. She did kind of start like shutting down, like it was like, it is what it is, okay,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. No, this is not normal. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I just wanted to scream it to the mountaintop. And what was crazy is I noticed as you are talking about this, there is a part of people that do shut down, like, whatever. What that is, I don't know.
That's
because
primal too. That's instinct as well. Just like with people, I think, and I'm not an expert. I'm not a fucking scientist. I'm nothing. I'm just a
yeah,
guy.
no, me neither.
But
Yeah,
like just things that I've learned talking to people like you and other people, and just absorbing the information. I kind of have my own theories on shit, and I think the everything is a primal instinct. Like shutting down is being submissive. But the
yeah,
inquisitive part, we're human and we always want to know more. It's almost just like when people they get embarrassed after they've had an encounter, almost like a face to face, or they've had a sighting and they piss themselves. I don't think there's
yeah.
anything to be embarrassed of, because
No,
if you think when you scare a dog, a cat, an animal, they piss. And I
yep,
think that's a way of your body producing other pheromones to get that fear factor out of the air and something else into the air. And that's just my belief. I mean, it could be wrong.
That's
but
interesting.
it's just something that I've always thought. I got a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. I'm coming up on time,
Yeah.
so I don't have a
Yep.
lot of time left. But being that you're from Alaska, we touched on this. I only want to touch briefly on this quick. Chatham. We talked about Chatham. Portlock.
Yeah.
Portlock, which everyone knows, the town that existed, the fishing town, and the people ran in the grizzly murders. That village is no longer, there's no buildings there, right?
No.
Right.
No, there's nothing there. No, you could just say it's like over time foliage has grown over and everything. There's nothing there.
Okay. Because I've heard people have claimed that the post office still exists, and I've heard that part of the old cannery, maybe, but nature's pretty much claimed everything over.
That's basically what it is now. Is that nature's just claimed it over. There's
Okay.
nothing really there. Nothing.
Have you
Like
been
you
up
could.
that way ever?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In
'Cause-
fact, it was 2 years ago. We were up that way. There is nothing there. In fact, if you were to come in you wouldn't, and you didn't know.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I didn't know at that time. You wouldn't know that, you would never know that anything was ever there.
Okay. All right. Now, the second thing I want to touch on. Now, I don't want you to get into it because we don't know yet. You said you were going to talk to this one person, but you have relatives, or your husband has relatives that are native up there, and you may ask this person. Hopefully, they agree. Something happened to their grandmother. Can you
Yep.
Can you share a little piece about that? Just maybe we can get this person to come on and share that with us.
Yeah, they're part of a tribe here, and they, this was a long time ago because it was when their grandmother was little. They have their own names for what people call Bigfoot or Sasquatch and stuff. So I don't really pronounce it very good or say it or whatever. I'd have to clarify. But her grandmother was taken by one when she was younger, and it was at the fishing wheel. So in the salmon run we have fishing wheels that are set up. So there was other family members around, but the grandmother had just happened to go like maybe a little bit ways from it and was taken, and her family members had seen and went after, and then she was just dropped.
Wow.
And that was, yeah. And so that area is cursed now, and so they moved their fishing wheel, and it's not there anymore. And that's just summing it up really quick.
Yeah, hopefully this person agrees to come on. I think that would be absolutely friggin' amazing to just even speak with the person would be friggin' awesome. But
I know. I just learned about that when
that's crazy.
Yeah.
When you told me that, I was like, holy shit! Like I was like, that is. It's just stuff that you read about, you know what I mean? And especially when you look up, because if you look up Alaska or you look up anything with Bigfoot in Alaska, the first thing you get is Portlock, or you get other little snippets, and they're all older, like from the 50s, 60s, snippets like that from, people that are now past, but what they experienced, and I think that's absolutely insane. Actually, I was just looking 2 or 3 days ago. It was kind of funny that you texted me right after the day after. I was looking at this. I was looking at Juneau's radio station, and they were talking about, they had a guy that has a Facebook page, something My Old Juneau or something, where he has old maps of mining town things and stuff like that. And they were talking about Sasquatch on this, and it was a Halloween episode of this radio station from Juneau. Ironically enough, the next day, you're like, hey, I really want to do this now. And I was like, oh, sweet. So.
Yeah.
But I am coming up on time right now. Don't hang up before we end. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience before we end the interview?
No, I just think that maybe if that's a lot. I mean, I know it's a few months apart, but that's a lot of out of the norm experiences that, in a short amount of time. And I guess, if there's others, I think that the biggest thing is you can learn from others' experiences. So it's okay. I mean, I get it. I struggled with it, but I think that how do you learn and how do you get past the scares part of it to start understanding and knowing,
Yeah.
and that, yeah.
I mean, you emailed me quite a while ago before you really, I think we communicated, I want to say a good 6 months ago. And, so it takes time, but, once I think it's valuable for other people to share, because then we can learn. Like I'm learning something every day from different people, and I take that and that information that we get from listening and just talking is so valuable. I mean, you can't get it in a book. You can only get this information from other people. And I think it's valuable when people share their info. So I thank you very much. Thank you so much for both of your encounters. Especially the first one is mind blowing. And it puts a whole different perspective on everything for me. But the second one is just terrifying too. So thank you. I mean, and I know it took a lot for you to share them.
Well, thank you too, because this is an awesome outlet in a sense, to get it out. And it doesn't, just because you may not, have this title or this license or that license. I just don't think that matters, because I think the truth comes from, your everybody, your average person or whatever, just tell that it is what it is. That's just what happened. And if it helps somebody, I hope it does, because that did a little bit of a mind F on me for a little bit. And then so
I mean, honestly, right now there could be someone listening that had an encounter just like your first one and just kind of has been sitting on it, but listens to encounter channels or reads or watches, and to hear your first one and be like, oh my God, that is so similar to what I had. And just by you sharing that might help someone deal with what they're going through right now. So that's the best part about it. So thank you so much.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. It was great having you on, and I'm going to say thank you and see you later.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Bye-bye. Wow. What an amazing interview. Brittany's a great person. Really good interview. Got a lot of information, and I feel blessed. I feel really honored to have her on the show. Actually, I feel honored whenever I have a subscriber come on and share. But to have those two different encounters from the two different spectrums of cryptozoology is just truly, truly terrifying and amazing. When she sends me the pics of the prints, I will let everyone know, and I will, with her permission, put them on my community post so you guys can check them out too. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to bid you farewell. Thank you for always being so supportive. I truly appreciate it. You guys are the channel. And see ya!